What is up, guys? Welcome to the ThinkComputers weekly tech podcast. This is episode 247, and our podcast is brought to you by Amazon. If you go to thinkcomputers.org/Amazon and happen to purchase something, we will get a little kickback. And of course, that keeps the podcast ongoing. With me is my co-host, Ryan. What's going on?
Well, not much. Just getting yelled at for being here early tonight. And then last week I get yelled at for being,
So we have
time tonight.
So we have somebody new this week, and we've been talking about this for a while. Is that we wanted to do interviews with people in the industry, in the PC industry, maybe in like the esports industry. We have a lot of friends, both you and I, Ryan, and I think it's to get people's perspectives. I think that's the biggest thing, is to just talk to people and have a conversation of what their role is in the industry or roles that they've played and some of their stories and how we know these people, and just something different than our because
you always hear our viewpoint every week, right? And we're like, oh, well, here's our spin on this week's stories and this product that came out and all of that, right? But like you said, we know all these folks, have these connections, and whether they're other people on other media sites, or people that work with a certain company or whatever the case may be, and getting them on, get into another viewpoint, a little different content for the show. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, so this is our first interview, so definitely let us know what you guys think of it, if you like it. We have Shannon Robb. I've known him for quite a long time. He used to work for Thermaltake, AVADirect, TweakTown. He now works for Be Quiet. He is their head PR or head manager or head PR manager. I'll let him explain it.
Homer.
Yeah, no, I have it over here, and I didn't want to not look at the
camera. I'm sitting here laughing at the backstage thing, just going, as he's sitting there like, he's head of this.
Marketing manager for Be Quiet USA and Canada. It's over here. That's what happens when you get an ultra wide. It's just
first world problems.
Well, I have here, and here.
Yeah. But welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome to the show, man.
It's good to have you on, and I think the biggest thing is maybe give people a sort of background of kind of who you are, how you got into the PC industry or the tech industry. Kind of just give us a story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've known me since back. Oh, wow. Okay, I guess. I just realized I could see myself.
Yeah. I can make you smaller if you want.
No, it's all good. Basically, I originally worked for General Motors subsidiaries, things like that, and worked in automotive and whatnot. And then when the big financial crap all happened, where GM needed a bailout and all that, we pretty much at that point was a transitional time where I wound up leaving. And actually, funny enough, I wound up actually at EVGA first. Okay. I was over there doing motherboard PM for almost damn near 5 years. Wow. And that got into some, cool design stuff, getting to come up with some new cool stuff like the right angle connectors you see on their boards now, things like that. Then I wound up at Thermaltake, which you know that because that's when we actually met, was when I was at Thermaltake. And that was a lot of fun times. I can remember all of them. I think pretty much, unless you tell me differently, Bob, but I'm pretty sure I can remember most of them from CES and everything else. I've worked on everything from, case designs there, cooler stuff, PSU stuff, pretty much everything. And then I got the opportunity actually to depart Thermaltake. I got an offer for like DoD contractor, custom computer builder out here in Ohio. And I moved out here and I wound up being in charge of their production team, basically teaching them how to do everything from hard tube bending, all that stuff, to coming up with new cool system ideas, things like that. And working on some cool like simulator stuff and things like that for DoD contractor stuff that I'm not 100% sure I want to. I'm not sure I should talk about. So we'll leave that there. And then I took a small hiatus when I left there and was like, I had always written on and off. I'd always done like tech journalism and written about motherboards, GPUs, stuff like that. And so I kind of fell back into that, doing cases and all that at TweakTown. And then when I got the opportunity at Be Quiet, I was like, you know what? This is a cool company. And I've always loved like working with cases and with power supplies and coolers and stuff. So when I got the opportunity to do that, I pretty much had to jump at it because it was just really cool. And the thing is, I work on things that I have like a passion for. If I enjoy doing it, I'm going to jump in on it. I enjoy making cool stuff, whether it's, 3D printing and whatnot, or whether it's basically, whether you're working on like designs for PC cases. And hopefully you'll get to see some more cool stuff coming up soon from Be Quiet, but I can't say anything about any of that until that comes later, especially to you guys.
Yeah, no, that's definitely exciting. I think Ryan, we have our notes over here, which I'm going to look at now.
Sure.
Ryan had a question. If you want to ask it, Ryan, about his learning background.
Yeah. So you kind of started off, it sounds like, in that automotive industry. So I was kind of curious. I've seen your content that you put up on Facebook and other social media. You're into a lot of overclocking, really getting into how the components all come together to make a product. Where does that kind of background and knowledge base come from? Is that a formal educational background, whether that's a 2-year, 4-year degree, a VOTech school, whatever the case may be, or is it just kind of like hands-on learning, getting that experience? What does that look like? How'd that come about?
I actually love telling this because a lot of people believe like you need to go to college for 4 or 8 years to do something crazy. I actually had the opportunity to get like a grant to go to college. And when I met the computer science teacher, it was so disheartening that I pretty much bailed on the whole idea.
Yeah.
And I started picking up like college level books and whatnot. Like you can buy them from like student stores and read them yourself. Funny enough, I started studying psychology first. I studied like a ton of psychology and things like that. And that made me more interested in the marketing side because you kind of start to want to learn how people think. Yeah. And then I started learning like everything. I learned electrical engineering and everything all the way from when I was a kid. I started basically desoldering crystals to overclock computers back probably before you guys were. I don't know. It depends how old you are, Bob, but I'm just saying, I don't know if you guys ever like futzed with any of the really old systems like XTs and things like that. They used to have clock generator crystals on them. And so you're talking like overclocking, like, 1/10 of a megahertz, and you'd basically be desoldering crystals on the board to do that.
I don't do any of that.
That's kind of where
that's a little before me.
Yeah.
That's where I started with it. And I've just kind of taught myself along the way, whether it's PCB layout design or what have you. I pretty much just figured it out. It's weird because I can look at things. It's the same thing with diagnosing computers. I can just look at it and it's like, it sounds like really cliche or funny, but I can just see how it works. Like I can look at a computer and just be like, okay, this is why something's happening. Most of the time, unless it's my own system, then shit breaks and I'm lost.
That happens to me all the time. I'll be like,
I can fix this for someone else, but mine.
Yeah, like why is my computer broken? It happens to me all
the time. Guess I need to
to
do one.
Well, the worst part about this is like I know a decent amount, kind of like you guys, about PCs, and what happens is I tend to jump to like the worst, most convoluted thing ever, rather than like, oh, it's unplugged.
Yeah.
Like legit, I put my panel on my PC once, and well, first of all, if you've ever had the pain of one of the drive trays that go in sideways and you put the panel on and it breaks the connector off the hard drive,
I haven't done
but
that,
I can imagine. Yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah,
that happened to a 12 terabyte hard drive. So yeah, that was fun. But that's the kind of like simple crap or like some stupid thing where like you forget to run like a CPU 8-pin cable after you're done building like a hardline liquid cooled system.
Yeah,
that's the fun stuff.
The one that happened to me recently, I'm like all the newer motherboards have the USB 3.2 Gen 2.
Yep.
Internal connector.
Mm-hmm.
And you can put that internal connector in one way or another.
You can't put it in the wrong way. If you put it in the wrong way, you're breaking it.
Well, no, I had it for whatever reason. This motherboard, I could put it in both ways. It was weird.
Bob broke it.
Yeah.
And my computer wouldn't start at all. So like I would press the button and nothing would happen. And I'm like, okay, it's power supply. I went through everything. I literally turned that cable over and it just booted up, no problem.
Yeah, because it's
shorted
actually
something out. Yeah.
Everyone for some reason thinks it's unidirect or it's omnidirect, whatever. Everyone thinks you can do it like you could flip it either way, like Type C. But the Type C connector, oh no, it's not. Like it has a fatter end on one side, and I'm guessing you just kind of seated it in there, but you didn't push it in because if you pushed it in, you would have. Like I have one of the Ghost Canyon Nux, one of those little ones with the compute card in it.
Yeah, and
I found out the hard way that that little USB 3.2 Gen 2 cable that hooks to that board. Who's got a puppy?
I
heard that. That's nice. I heard that. Well, mine's actually being quiet, surprisingly. I pulled that little board out and I see the connector. I'm like, and I had to unplug it. I damn near break that thing clear off.
Yeah.
Those things are
quick.
Go ahead.
Real quick, everybody is coming in the live stream. We do have people from YouTube, so maybe YouTube is working. Corey says, what's up? Paul is in the house as well. Gregory is also in the house, as well as our good old friend Damon is in the house too. So,
look at this guy.
So there's a lot of people in
YouTube
here.
seems to be back up. So
I'll
keep an eye on chat as well.
Came back up just in time.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's pretty interesting. I think that the same thing with me as far as like I went to college for a year and I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this. This is a waste of time. At least I thought it was. So it's really cool that you kind of, went down that path. Now, as far as if we want to talk about
my thing is the one thing is I would say is like I really hope that stories like this do kind of get out so that people aren't pushed into that stigma of you have to go, because I know so many people with degrees that can't get jobs. And I'd much rather see people learn a trade, like learn something by immersing themselves, because there's only so much you're going to get out of like book learning. I mean, you're going to get the generic stuff they teach you, but real life is going to teach you a ton more. I mean, I've managed people who've had very high-end degrees, and they had to learn on the job how to do the job because it didn't prepare them for it.
Yeah, and I think it's go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, like, I've been in a hiring managing position, right? Where bringing those people on and looking at, resumes and interviewing people. And I always lean towards those people that have a passion for it outside of like, well, this is what I got my degree in, or, they're already building their PCs, right? And outside of their formal education type stuff, just those folks that have the hands-on stuff that you're not necessarily going to get in a classroom is super valuable. So yeah, I'm definitely, while I'm a proponent of higher education, I don't think it's required for, so much stuff. And obviously that's the takeaway here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is for sure. I think, I guess like Shannon, you've worked for multiple different companies within the industry. I mean, what would your, say somebody who either wants to get into the industry, like what would you tell them? Like, what would you say?
The biggest thing is find something simple, entry level, like marketing assistant, even customer service. I've helped people come up from customer service into other roles. Just, it may, because the problem you have right now is a lot of people, and I don't mean this to sound like negative or like bad, but a lot of people feel like they're too good for a specific job, but you have to start somewhere. And if you don't start, you're not going to start at the top. You definitely will not.
Yeah.
But if you build up that experience and you have that backing, you're going to have a lot of people that know what you can do, and they're going to see it as you come up through it. And it's going to make it a lot easier in the future. If you decide to transition, people are already going to know what you're capable of. And that's one of probably the important parts I would say is, just be willing to take the job. Like if you find a company you really like and you want to work for, be willing to take a lower job than what you want and work toward that job.
Yeah. I mean, I know people in the industry that started out very, very, on the entry level, and now they're like a senior vice president or like head of a certain, that's how you have to do it. And people, people think that's like, all the jobs that don't require, say, like, you start at McDonald's as somebody making burgers, and then you'll eventually become a manager. I mean, that's how it is everywhere, though. I think.
Yeah, but that's the thing. A lot of people now feel like that they shouldn't have to do that, and so therefore they look at the job like it's beneath them. They're not willing to start at that entry level, and that's where you get a lot of people that end up in this weird grind where they never actually are able to develop like a strong career, is because they just don't want to, they don't want to be seen, because they look at it like it's this negative connotation toward them if they're willing to take this like lower end job. And that's just nonsense. I mean, anyone who thinks that, hopefully they eventually figure it out, because that's, if you want to make it, you're gonna have to work your ass off. It's just the reality.
Yeah. I think we all know that all too well. So let's go to Thermaltake, because I mean that's when we first met. And I think one of the interesting things is you obviously, Thermaltake makes a lot of things, but they're mainly known for cases.
Yes.
I think a lot of people would want to know, like, what, and I even me, because I'm not even 100% sure on all this, is how, like, from start to finish, like, how is a case made? Like from design phase, like if you could go through maybe like the design phase through full production, like how does that even happen, or how does that work?
That's a really broad question, but I can tell you that a lot of them start out with like, you work with artists and you work on renders, because notoriously people who design cases normally either can't draw for shit or they can draw okay, but they're not going to be drawing a case. And me, I could screw up a stick figure, so I don't want to pretend like I'm good at that. So my wife's the artist in as far as this family, but you work with your artist. You got to get a baseline render and idea, especially the theme you want the case to have, because the thing is, you could build 1,000 square boxes, but you got to have some sort of unique aesthetic. And so once you come down with that, then it comes down to a whole lot of back and forth with like engineering teams and things like that, because what a lot of people don't know about cases is that everything costs money. You see, like, for instance, like a rolled edge, like a little simple thing like a rolled edge can cost a ton of money in tooling. You have like a case panel where you see, like, for instance, it folds over, then has the lips that fold back. When you have jigs like that, those things the cost just keep racking up, which is why you see, like, on a $30, $40 case, they don't have, some of them, even now, for $30, $40 cases have rolled edges, but you still have the ones that have the sharp corners, things like that. That's because that kind of fit and finish, that stuff costs more. That's, when you have that kind of fine level to detail, or even materials, that's why you get like the flimsy panels on like cheaper cases, is because you're paying for the material you're using. You're paying for, the dies and for all the tooling, that literally tooling, which a lot of people don't understand. When I say tooling, I mean, that's everything from the thing stamping it to everything everything that's whether it's the dies, whether it's something that taps, all that stuff is tooling that's set up specifically for that product. And the initial cost on some cases can run in excess of hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a case. And that can be a pretty painful investment if it doesn't do well. So a lot of thought goes behind it. You can see cases that were conceptualized, created, tested, going through like multiple PVT samples, things like that, before they ever come out to like MP or mass production samples. You could see a case that's worked on for a year to 2 years easily.
Oh,
that's crazy.
That's pretty interesting.
It takes a lot.
Yeah, it always seems like it does, because I mean, even at CES, like we see these prototypes and then we don't see them for like a year and a half, sometimes 2 years. And it's like, as somebody who's reviewed a ton of cases and just, where it's like, oh, come on, let's go. Let's get this stuff going.
Where's your new case? Yeah.
Like,
the thing is, when you change, like, for instance, and I've done that. I've done that to you, actually, where I've shown you cases at your Computex or CES, where I'm showing a new case, like when I was at Thermaltake, or soon you'll probably be meeting with us at Be Quiet once we're able to actually go, once this whole virus bullshit's gone. Once you're able to do events again, one of the most valuable things is to take a case to a live event like CES or Computex or even like PAX and get general user feel, get some feedback. And that might be an early PVT sample or early like pre-production prototype. And you still have a little time to make small tooling changes. Obviously, at that point, you're not recreating the whole case unless something goes disastrously wrong. But, you could still add a lot of small things that will add a lot of cost, but make it a better final product.
I have noticed, especially like the past, like maybe 3 CESs, is that almost every company showed us some type of prototype. It doesn't even have to be cases where it's like, we're just getting some feedback. We're getting like that. Before that, you didn't see it as much. Have you noticed that change as well? Where like companies want actual feedback. They're not just like putting on a product without, they want feedback from the people who come to CES, whether it's buyers, whether it's, PR or, PR or press like us. Like, have you noticed that change?
Well, that's actually been an ongoing change over the probably past 5 years or so. It used to be something that was far less prevalent to happen, but it's definitely become more commonplace because the market's become so much more competitive. You look like a good example. Remember when we created like the Core P5? Created that case, and then all of a sudden now you see like the Payen or Rigentech Payen or however the hell you said the name of that. You have like Leon Lee made one similar to it. You have all these different cases that come out. So you only have like the initial idea, the initial concept for a very short time before other companies are going to start adopting it. So by bringing in a prototype, getting feedback from people and making it the best possible, that gives you the best possible time to get that revenue, get that. I hate to make it sound like all business is money, but it is basically that initial time where you can make that money. You can sell those cases before the next best thing or the guy who copies it and does one small thing better that everyone talks about. Because that's the thing. If you take just a case, put it out to market, and all the consumer feedback says, well, I really wish you did this. Then someone goes and does that with their own version of the case. And all of a sudden you lose out because they look like the smarter one that made that better case. Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people will collect feedback, just because it makes it a lot more advantageous at the end run that you'll have a more perfect case, which I don't think a perfect case exists, but close as possible to a perfect case that people will like as much as possible, and people it'll give them less ways they can one up you when they create it. And the best thing they can do is probably copy it and add some obscure feature to try to make it different.
Yeah,
like,
I think,
RGB, RGB, all the thing.
Yeah. Now, what I guess when it comes to designing cases, cooling is obviously sometimes not the most important thing, but like how big is that in the whole design process, where you see some cases you're like, how did they design this? Because there's no ventilation at all.
No components are going in this, right?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure you have like some of that, like you have part of a company that's like engineering minded, like, oh, we have to have, this amount of cooling for this size of a case or whatever the case may be. And then you may have a whole nother area that they're like, we need to have this look, and this has to be a solid panel, and we don't care about ventilation. Right. So I guess going into that.
That is an interesting one. And that is, honestly, it really depends on the company. Some companies are just smash a case out, get it out the door, start selling it. And former employers of mine, yes, they were kind of like that in certain cases, as pun intended. But in certain scenarios, they would pump out a case, and it is what it is. It's just, hey, hopefully it sells. But that's where I'm actually quite happy where I'm at right now, is because like I've seen behind the curtain a little bit on how, because I've only been here like I think month and a half or maybe getting close to 2 months. And so far the meetings and the stuff I've talked about, like the amount of thought and detail that goes into cooling and into aesthetic as well, like to make sure it's a cohesive package, is quite surprising and not something I'm necessarily used to, because normally there's always you'll get one, but you might lose another. One will suffer basically. And that's always been the thing. And I'm glad we've got away from a lot of the gamer style cases that you used to see. Remember the ones that look like a transformer puked out a baby, and that's the case you got. Those things were horrendous, because you had these big plastic scratchable panels, easy to break, didn't flow air well, didn't have a lot of good mesh on it. There was a lot that made it pretty, but also made it suck.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's cool. You make a great showpiece, but what the hell does it matter if, your components are going to catch on fire, especially with the new Flex TDP on all the processors, where you've got processors that, oh, it's 105 watt TDP. Yeah, sure. That means absolutely nothing, because I mean, when I used to test motherboards and CPUs, I literally would test directly in line. I had inline testers to test everything in current draw. And I'm like, yeah, that's pulling 190 watts. That's not 105 watt TDP CPU. Awesome. Yeah. Or even worse, 97 watts TDPs or 95 watt TDP CPU. They're pulling like almost 200. And it's like, okay, I guess they got it half right.
Yeah. These specs don't matter, apparently.
Well, yeah, TDP's become kind of a joke. It's one of those things where that's where it makes it hard also to represent cooling. Like coolers, like you could make a cooler that's like, hey, and that's another thing that gets very obscure is like, oh, we have a 150 watt TDP CPU cooler. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean it holds 150 watts at 99C, like right at throttle point? Or does that mean like it holds 150 watts and that's the thing. Like, for instance, if you were to ask, I know at least when I worked there, like Thermaltake coolers, they're rated at a specific TDP, and they're rated that basically means that they're getting close to throttle point at that TDP. So that's fine because, you have a 250 watt TDP cooler. There's not a lot of 250 watt TDP chips. Oh yeah, there are actually. So yeah, so you're talking flaming dumpster fire.
Yeah.
But that's where a lot of people will represent coolers differently. Some of them will be, hey, this is TDP. This is like 150 watt TDP cooler or 250 watt TDP cooler. And that's 250 watt TDP at a maintainable, like comfortable temperature at like, let's say 75, 80 C, which is still perfectly fine. A lot of people think if you're above like 60, oh my God, your processor's going to melt.
I've been way higher than that.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people don't understand that. They're like, oh my God, it's like, dude, you don't realize like you're like when like, oh, my VRM temps are 65C. It's like those are made for like 150. They'll be okay.
You're fine.
Yeah. And your CPU will, and I can tell you for sure, because I have installed with the wrong hardware and had a CPU cooler sit about 2 millimeters above a CPU, then it will shut itself off and it won't hurt anything.
Yeah.
But
they've smartened up.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're talking like Athlonix 2 days, maybe it would just, pretty much pop the die and be done. But nowadays, it's not as important. But that's just one of those things where, basically, long story short, because I know you asked about like how does cases thermal versus like aesthetic. It really depends on the team doing it. Some teams are just like YOLO. They'll just throw something out there and hope it sticks. Yeah. I hate to say that, but the old adage, throw something at the wall, hope it sticks, kind of thing. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes you're lucky and it comes out really cool. Sometimes you're not. But if you give that kind of forethought, the other problem with that is if you give the thought to aesthetic and to performance, it is going to take you longer, and that means you are slower to market. You're not going to make as many cases, but you'll make better cases. So, I guess pick your poison.
Yeah,
or wait for reviews from Bob, and then he'll tell you the case sucks, and then you don't have to buy it.
I'll be like, why did you send me this? Yeah,
I could think of a few that fall in that category. I don't want to bash anyone, so I won't say it, but I could think of at least probably 30.
Yeah, I honestly feel at least these days it's hard to make a product that's like super bad. I think maybe 5-6 years ago, I had a couple cases that was like, how did this even pass like qualification? Because there were just issues, and like you would install a graphics card and like it wouldn't fit, or you would install a CPU cooler that was like 135 millimeters high and it would like hit the side panel. Like those issues I don't think we have anymore. And I think that a lot of people nowadays, they know like I have a case sitting beside me that has 3 tempered glass panels. I know that it's not going to be high airflow, and I know it's not going to be the best performance, but I want it because it's shiny and RGB, right? I think we kind of have that now, at least in my opinion. I think you kind of know what you're getting these days when you're buying. Like if you're buying a certain case, you know what you're getting for the most part. But still on cases, I think what is your favorite case at Thermaltake that you personally worked on? You have one.
My favorite one would probably be one of the first projects that I worked with the team on. Would probably be actually, and it was one of the first ones I introduced with you guys, was Core series, Core and the Urban series. Remember Core V71 and Urban T81? Those big monster cases. Those were the first cases that we made that really took like liquid cooling support seriously. That was also when we created like the whole LCS certified, all that stuff. I worked to create like all of those certifications to make sure there were specific benchmarks before we called a case like liquid cooling capable, like those kind of things.
Oh yeah, because I remember this one had all that hard drive support.
Yep.
With the pull out trays. Yeah, I remember this one.
And it basically, if you ripped all that out, you had massive radiator mounting top and front and back. You could fit a ton in there, along with even some at the bottom.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was you might not have been the first, but Thermaltake was one of the first ones that gave you this like in their would show you what radiators would actually fit. Because I think before water cooling became more mainstream, you would not know this until you actually bought the case, like, or somebody posted it on some random thing.
Well, yeah,
and maybe
you'd be like, oh, sure, 220 millimeter fans will fit up top, but is there enough room for the ends of the radiator to actually fit the whole thing up there? Yeah,
and
I remember that.
That's the thing with that is that was probably one of the reasons was the whole LCS certification thing. And I was glad we did that, because otherwise it can be really obscure. Back in the day when you used to have it fits this many fans, that's great. But then you go and put a radiator in it and you have, next thing you know, you can't fit RAM, or you can't, you can't fit anything else. And that just becomes a nightmare of compatibility. So that was a cool one. And that's where I'm glad, the industry has definitely moved toward being more liquid cooling friendly. Not to say everyone needs liquid cooling. I mean, but if you want it, it's nice to know that most cases nowadays will support it in some form.
Yeah. Let's I want to catch up with the chat.
There's a lot going on tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in there. Sorry, I do this thing, Shannon, where I don't look at the chat. I know you.
That's fine. I can't see it.
I was watching, and I'll chat back to him.
Yeah. Old man is here, so say what's up to him. He's one of our regulars. Shinny is here as well. Another one of our regulars. Derek Moore is here as well. We get down this list.
Damon's on there. I don't know if you mentioned him earlier.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did mention Damon. Kayla is in the house, all the way from Artesia. Kayla's here. So yeah, everybody. Paul's here as well. But yeah, everybody's in the house. He said that. Paul said that. Yeah, good. You can.
But I'm a snob. Yeah, I'd say everyone needs liquid cooling. Well, then again, I say that not everyone needs it, but my rig next to me has two 60 mil thick 360 rads and a 240 at the top. So I mean, I say that, but yet I'm the worst at following my own advice. So
I don't take it. I have an AIO.
I'm afraid.
I am very afraid, and it's just like I'm so busy that I just need something that works. And I think that honestly, that's a lot of people that they're like, even people who don't want to build a PC. I still think that getting a pre-built is not a bad option. If you don't want to learn and you don't have the time, get a pre-built.
Oh, you mean get a pre-built PC?
Like if you don't want to
I'm totally cool with that. I'm just that's the thing. A lot of people get like a very anyone. And like a lot of people, I don't want to say anyone, but a lot of people in the PC community, they look down on that. And I don't see a problem with it. If you're not comfortable with it and you're worried about breaking something, get something. It has a warranty. Just make sure you don't get screwed, because there are some of those that will completely bone you.
Yeah. And I think especially now, the margins, we've done a couple of reviews. We even did like an AVADirect one. Like you would put it in PC part picker and it's like $200 more or whatever than building it yourself. It's like, okay, it's going to take me an hour to build it. I have to install Windows. That's another 30 minutes. Like that's worth $200 in my opinion.
Yep.
Kind of just.
Well, that's the thing is that when you're considering that, a lot of people don't think about the fact that someone had to put it together. They're getting paid. Yeah. They're also pre-testing the parts. So imagine you get a motherboard. It's DOA. Now you got to deal with the BS to get it either RMA'd, take it back to the store, send it back to Newegg, Amazon, whatever it may be. Yep. Wait, I should probably mention Amazon primarily because you're like sponsored by them or something. I heard your whole sellout intro.
Yeah. No. I'm a Amazon. I literally buy everything on Amazon. The only time I don't is if I cannot find it on there. I buy it. Just
That's so crazy.
If you have Prime, it's just makes sense.
It makes sense. It does.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
That's the thing. I buy a lot of stuff. I say that kind of crap. But I buy a lot of stuff from Amazon simply because I don't want to have to go somewhere and look for it.
Exactly.
Like Amazon has most everything, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to really go and have to deal with all that crap. It's just like you could just sit and order on your couch, and the following day have something arrive at your door.
Yeah. And now they're doing like in some cities you'll get like the 2-hour delivery window where you can get it within 2 hours.
I saw that.
We're getting a warehouse here, and I can't wait.
It's like Prime Now or something.
Yeah. So it's like, good.
No, I was just gonna say where it's like literally you could order it and you could have it like a couple hours later. Like you could be like, oh, I've got a meeting. Like let's say it's 9 a.m. And you're like, I've got a meeting at 2 o'clock. Technically, you could get a new webcam delivered to your house before your meeting starts.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I want to talk about it's not as much in tech, but I mean, you were living in California, and you moved to Ohio. What was that like? How was that whole process?
It was a very long drive in my pickup truck, towing my wife's brand new car. I just bought her right before we got the job offer. And we had 2 birds, we had 2 dogs, snakes, and a clownfish that we put in a like beer cooler in the back seat, and it survived the entire I drove across the country in like 3 days. My wife's sitting here reading things off behind the green screen, like, we have this, and I'm sure I missed plenty of it, but like literally there was parts of it where like my dog Dobby was right up on my shoulder, like co-piloting, just looking out the front window as I'm driving across the country. I got to see so much flat land because I found out the middle of the United States is nothing but just flat nothingness for like
that's
hundreds of miles.
That's right.
Where do you live, Ryan?
In Wichita, Kansas. So.
Oh yeah, so you live right in the middle. I probably like drove right through your front room.
Yep,
and didn't realize
I'm sorry.
No, dude, there was areas where legit I'm looking out and I'm just like, wow, that's a whole lot of nothing.
Oh yeah.
Like if I broke down, I'd be dead.
I'm gonna be doing the opposite. I'll be going from Pittsburgh to California in April. If that's if everything goes to plan. And I'm just like, I don't want to drive. I have so much stuff. I have all this computer stuff that I have to take. It's not like I can just like, get all this new stuff when I get there. So it's going to be a whole process, for sure. But
it'll be a massive pain in the ass, and then you get to realize how much of a massive pain in the ass it is to live in California. Because I lived there 33 years, man.
Yeah, with taxes and everything else, I'm not looking forward to it. But I'm going to be in San Diego, so I think it will be, at least the weather will be nice.
Oh no, the weather being in San Diego is beautiful. And don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful, amazing place. The problem is, just like you probably hate snow and all that, right?
No, I don't hate it.
Whatever. You're always complaining. As soon as it gets cold and starts snowing, he's always complaining.
Well, the thing is, like, I've had people tell me, like, oh my God, you moved from California to come here? Like at the checkout line, like when I first moved here, oh my God, you moved from California to come here? And I'm like, yes, why? And they're like, why would you do that? And I'm like, live in California for 33 years. Trust me, life changes.
I think it's like anything though.
But everyone out there is in a rush though. That's the thing. And I'm more one of those like slow paced dudes where I like to just chill, hang out and be okay. And everyone's like in like that rat race mode. And I'm like past that at this point. I'm like, I more want to chill and look at snow and just be like, I don't know, be an old man with like a blanket over me, drinking like apple cider.
Yeah. How was that? Like, how was like you, I think it was a few years or 5, I don't know how many years at this point when you moved, but I mean, how was that first winter? Was it like surprising or?
Oh, it was awesome, dude. I loved it. Everyone's like, oh, I hate this. And I'm like, this is fantastic. It would snow and I'd walk out of my office when I was working over at AVA. I'd walk out into the parking lot and they'd be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just watching it snow. And they're like, this sucks. And I'm like, it's great. This is fantastic. And the funny part is I have a 2-wheel drive truck, a rear-wheel drive vehicle. And everyone's like, this is going to suck. I have yet to have a single problem. I drove that thing, no problem. And I'm watching cars slide off the freeway and I'm doing like,
the thing is that people who live in California and in Nevada, I've seen it a lot in Las Vegas, is that as soon as it rains or it snows, they cannot drive. So I'm proud that you can do that because a lot of people cannot. They have no clue what's going on.
Well, I used to drive a few race cars back in the day. So I mean, I've got a little experience driving, but still it's one of the weird things. Like you get used to the whole tire slip crap. Like the worst is like I live at the bottom of a hill in a cul-de-sac. So if it gets iced up pretty bad, you're boned. Like there's not a whole lot you can do.
Big cul-de-sac though. I remember I've been to your house.
Yeah, that's right.
You were going to tell this story, weren't you?
Oh yeah, God.
Yeah. So I assume we can tell this. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I don't know what launch it was. It was an
X299.
X299 launch. So
yep,
Intel samples us some processors, and I'm super excited because at that point we were kind of. That's when what was his name? Jeff, right? Our main contact had moved on.
And, but originally Dan, right?
Yeah, Dan, not Jeff. Sorry, Dan.
And then it moved to Benson. So
yeah. So anytime, and I'm sure, anytime a contact changes at a company, sometimes it's hard to get in with a new person. It's just like in our industry, that's how it works. If something changes, like when Shannon left Thermaltake, it was like, I got to meet the new person, or I got to get with a new person. And sometimes that just doesn't happen. So with Intel, we were like really happy to get these processors. And when you do this, a lot of the times, like, you have to source your own motherboards from the motherboard manufacturers that we work with. And at that time, we were working with a couple. But the boards for the X299 launch, the ones that I was supposed to get, were delayed, and I wasn't going to get them on launch day.
I remember this so well.
So I'm like talking to Shannon, and I'm just like, yeah, I have these processors, but I have nothing to test them on. He's like, oh, well, I got this X299 board right here. So it's like, okay, so what's your address?
Yeah.
I drove like 3.5 hours into Ohio to go get them, and then bring them back. And then I tested both processors. And I think I finished writing the review at 6 a.m. and the reviews launched at 9 a.m. Was like my timeline for it. It was but Shannon hooked it up and we got it on launch day, because that's the biggest thing when you work in our industry is you want to release your review at launch, because that's when everybody's reading them. 3 days later, a week later when those boards did show up, I mean, it was too late. It was
too little too late. I mean, you can still do motherboard reviews, but that doesn't help you on your launch day review. That's probably one of the biggest pains in the ass. And I'm glad that nowadays it seems like they're getting better about giving kits to do stuff now, because it used to be, here's some CPUs. And then you have to try to, you get a board, right? And you might not get the best board for testing that processor. So then like your launch day review might even look worse than others, depending on what board they got. Yep. I like that now they're kind of giving kits. So it gives you a lot more capability to see how each person's testing varies and how each person's platform varies, because I feel like it also allows you to best represent the product, which is always cool. But then you also get the motherboard reviews where you could show how it deviates and what performance it either gains or loses. And that's probably one of the weirder parts. And I'm glad I had those, because I actually had a couple boards and I was like, here, I've got this one. You can, I'm like, it's a long way. And I remember you showing up and I'm like, damn, he actually came. Okay.
Yeah. Joe, when you want to get that launch review and you can do it. And again, this was like us working with a new guy at Intel. So it was like, I don't want to be like, the boards never showed up. I don't have a launch review for you. You know what I mean? So I was just like, got to make this happen. 3 hours or 3.5 hours there, 3.5 hours back. Worked out. And,
oh, good. I went like all pixelated again. Yay! Apparently that's happening.
Whatever. I got a couple more questions though. I got some other items
we have a lot to talk about still, but go ahead.
Oh no, if you got, I'm gonna jump in with one then. All right. So I've seen you write articles about, overclocking various pieces of hardware. What's your favorite type of hardware to overclock? CPUs, memory, GPUs? Like, what do you enjoy the most?
I think CPUs, because there's so much involved. When it comes to GPUs, there's a little bit involved, but most of it's just finding your core at your chosen temperature, obviously. And then, tweaking the memory and seeing where you could take it, because a lot of people don't touch memory on GPUs and don't realize it actually gives a pretty big advantage. I would say CPUs overall, or even just overclocking board to board. I enjoy overclocking boards because it's really interesting when I find a budget $200 board that can overclock just as well as some of these damn $900 boards.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I guess that, but what would be your favorite? I mean, I imagine you overclock, don't you?
Yeah. Not every system, right? Like,
okay, so he doesn't overclock. I gotcha.
When I didn't want to spend, like, my first couple builds, like I was like super budget, didn't have a lot of money. That's when I would do it, because I'm like, I want to get as much performance out of these dollars as I can. Now I just buy something that I know is going to perform at a level that I'm okay with, and I don't do it as much. However, I have overclocked the current system, but I don't know, probably GPU.
The problem nowadays, you can't even overclock CPUs for the most part. I mean, the thing is, nowadays with like TVB and like the precision boost on AMD, they clock high enough with single core. And if you try to do it, if you end up overclocking, a lot of times, unless you're really, really pushing the edge, you're going to actually lose single thread performance, which is what you use every day to use your OS. Yeah. So I don't know. It's like, it feels like overclocking is kind of becoming a lost art unless you're going XOC. Then, then you can obviously push it and do some cool stuff. But under standard ambient cooling, there's not a lot of pushing anymore without losing. Actually, you lose performance on one end to get a little bit higher on multi-core.
Right.
Damon says overclock all the things.
Oh yeah, I do. Don't get me wrong. I love overclocking all the things, but at the same time, except Ryzen. Oh, come on. Well, then again, I mean, tell me how high your 10900K is going to go. 5.2 all core. I mean, come on.
Yeah, you need some serious cooling for, especially the Intel parts. I mean,
well, that's the thing. 10900K. I love the chip. Don't get me wrong, but it's already has, and then mind you, that's with a thinned out substrate. That's where, not substrate, with a thinned out diffusion layer, just to give you a closer contact to your IHS. Even with that, the thing runs just hot as hell. Because there's only so much. I said this multiple times. There's only so much you squeeze out of the 14 nanometer node before it just you're starting to get to where your returns are marginal. And now you're seeing that Rocket Lake they've announced is going to be up to 8 core, 16 thread, and higher IPC, but still 14 nanometer. And it's like, okay, I guess.
yeah. I mean, when did I guess 2021, like later in 2021, at the end of. I'm guessing the end of the year we'll finally get off 14 nanometer.
I'm hoping they will make that node shift eventually. I think the problem is now it's a little late. They've obviously still have 10 nanometer they're working with. Their 7 nanometer had issues, so I'm not sure what the next step will be. I mean, they may end up going with like an outside fab, like 5 nanometer process at that point. It's up in the air, man. You just don't know where they're going to end up going.
Yeah. So. I always had this in my head about Intel. I always thought, because it just like it's an Intel thing, would be 10th gen should have been 10 nanometer. Like I always had that in my head.
Well,
like for years I had that in my head.
You got to remember 10 nanometer was supposed to be what, in 2016, 2017-ish time frame? Yeah. And it kept getting pushed back. So 10th gen, I thought for sure they were going to pull it off. Ice Lake would be there, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in laptops, but great. But
yeah, like I said, it's I don't know. I also want to talk. So you said you've always written, and you most recently have wrote for TweakTown, our friends over at TweakTown. What do you think? What's the big difference between actually, like, say working for a company and then coming over to the press side? Like, in which one do you like better? I would say.
I would say, you know what, I've actually written on and off for well over a decade, and I've written at Bjorn 3D. I've written at TweakTown. I did actually a little bit of freelance work actually with Marco and Dave over at Hot Hardware, and that was fun. All of it was fun. It was all cool stuff. I did it. It's always been really exciting and engaging to test new stuff, but you don't get to create anything. And the thing with me is I have a passion for creating cool stuff. I may not be a creative type as far as, painting or drawing, but as far as like new tech and new design stuff, like industrial design, things like that, mechanical design, that kind of stuff, that's what like fires me up. That's what like gets me going as far as creativity and having like cool ideas, like things like cases. I love coming up with new ways to do things with cases that make it either more convenient or just really badass.
Yeah.
And that's working. Don't get me wrong. Working like reviewing is awesome, but you're always under that crunch. It kind of makes it to where when you want to enjoy the tech, you just look at it and it's like, oh, this is just like basically going to be more work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And like I think I forget. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, you're fine.
Maybe it was Paul's Hardware or somebody. They were doing the thing where they went to like other YouTubers' place and they had we've all seen it. I have them behind me. All the products, it's like, oh, you have all this. And the one thing they said was, you don't realize the time those all these cool things that are behind me, those all are
hours and hours
of testing and writing. And if you're making a video, all of that, it's people don't realize like, oh, you get the new Ryzen chips. Yeah. But I mean, I spend weeks testing them, and I have to write and do all that. So that's like one thing I think that not a lot of people realize.
Dude, do you know how many times I've heard but you get that free, dude?
Nothing free about it.
Dude,
yeah.
With how many hours? Like when I do regression testing, because anytime I did like new CPUs, whatnot, I always did regression testing. I went back and tested 3-4 generations back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you do that, the amount of time invested, especially with the level of tests I would do. I mean, I did tons of tests. I cut it back toward the end, but I did tons of tests to try to represent as much data as possible because I'm a total data whore when it comes to stuff like that. I have spreadsheets for days for that kind of stuff. And I realized, like, you're spending so much time, you literally could have went and bought the product and you would have probably made out like a bandit working a normal job. And that, but I still love doing it. I still love writing about stuff. I still love doing like video talking about stuff with you guys. Yeah. I still love being able to talk about new products. Like eventually you'll see me, at CES, Computex, what have you, where I'm going to be talking about new products. That's what I love doing. And it's the same as reviewing. Like
you're very good at it too. It's like anytime when I would see you at CES, you would always be like, okay, this is what, like, you would be very specific on each product. And I always hated the companies that would have like a spokesperson there that didn't know anything. Or like, and you know what's crazy? It's like the really big companies. Like if you go to the Samsung booth, they have a person that's allowed to be on TV and they know the talking points, so you can interview them, but they know nothing else. And it's like
you can't ask them any real questions.
You can't ask them any real questions. So I always like going to see you because you would tell me everything, and you would be like, yeah, like don't say anything, but this is coming out here, and like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Thanks for outing me on that, Bob.
Ratting him out, man. Jeez.
But like you would always
someone from Be Quiet's gonna be watching this and be like, don't give him the roadmap.
No, you never gave me like, but you would always say, you'd always just be like very specific, and that was always good for us because I know our listeners and our readers want the specifics. They don't want to be like, oh, it's pretty and shiny, but we don't know anything else. Like they want to know the real details, and you always did that. And you'd always like try to give me a shot as you look at our thumbnail for this video. You'd always try to give me a shot every time I would show up as well. So
hey, that was just we were doing business, and you looked parched, and the only thing that could help you was whiskey.
Yeah,
all that walking around
at 9 a.m.
yeah, I think that's when that was. It was like really early too, and it was like he's like, before I tell you anything, you got to do this shot. I was like, okay,
all right.
Oh, dude, I did that with everyone, dude. It was like, and it's just because it kind of breaks the ice. It makes it a little more fun, because the thing is, you're already walking around all over Vegas and all over hell and back, and it's January, so it gets kind of cold out there. So you're kind of, you're either Ubering or trying to walk from hotel to hotel. So I figure, you know what, give you something to give you a little fun before we have to go through the whole spiel of, hey, here's all the products. And that's one thing I loved doing was, don't get me wrong, I like a lot of products, but sometimes we had bullshit products, and I'd be like, especially like when you're at Thermaltake booth, you have a lot of little ancillary shit. So I'd be like, here's the stuff you want to see.
Yeah.
There's stuff over here. If you want to go take B-roll, go ahead, but there's no point in talking about it.
So when I first started doing CES, and I think for a while, I was always like really scared to like speak up and say, like, I don't give a shit about your power bank.
Oh no, RGB mouse mat.
Yeah, or whatever. Now I'm just like, okay, what do I want? Okay, I want this, and this. Tell me this, and I'm out of there. Like Ryan knows, because I'm like, Ryan, take pictures of this, and then we're out of here.
Yep.
I think you have to be, because especially like some companies will have like 5 things, but some companies like Thermaltake will have like 35 things, and it's like, we have this meeting scheduled for an hour.
I have an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I have an hour. Give me like your 3 best products, and then I have to leave. Like it's,
that sucks that you have to put yourself in that position. But at the same time, that's also the company putting themselves in that position. But they are making, to give to their credit, when I worked there, and I think they still are, they're still following a similar cadence of delivering some pretty cool stuff. And then you have some, it kind of scales. If you're paying a lot for it, you get something kind of cool. And then it scales downward from there. The problem is,
any company is though these days.
Yeah,
right?
But they want to show you everything though, and it's like, hey, show me the cool highlight stuff that people are going to want to see. No one's going to want to see a $32 case that a system integrator is going to use.
Yeah. So, well, let's see what else we got on our notes here.
I got another one if you're
follow a script.
No, so. All right, so we've kind of talked about, PCs, and you're saying, oh, what's Ryan running, or whatever the case may be. So I want to kind of get your history of PCs, 3 of them in specific. So maybe your first home PC, right? Whether that was something you had growing up, when you were younger, whatever the case may be, if you can remember what that was and maybe some of the specs, and then the first build that you did that was your own, and then what your current build is.
First PC was pre-XT. It had it had literally onboard memory and 2 floppy drives. So we're talking like no hard drive, none of that. It just was straight up 2 floppy drives. It's, it had like a monochrome screen and stuff like that. There's not a lot to talk about. That's one of the first ones I cut my teeth on soldering. My uncle got me into it a long time ago, and I started soldering stuff around the age 7, doing that stuff like that. And then from there, midway, I would say one of the first ones was that I actually started building again, because when I got into automotive, I kind of fell out of the PC game for a while because it just didn't have time, because I was building cars and doing all kinds of crazy stuff with that. But then when I first met my wife, she didn't know I was into tech or even knew anything about computers. Yeah, she just said behind me, bait and switch. Because I know a lot about cars, and I could like fix cars and do all this stuff. But then we move and we get like our like first apartment and whatnot. And next thing you know, I'm working down the road from a place. Oh God, actually it's where Jacob Freeman actually came from. Funny enough, he was originally there. PC, I don't remember, some PC shop. And back he used to work at the other one that was out in Brea, and I had run into that shop, and I was like, I need to build a PC again. So I wound up building a Q6600 with a 780 780i SLI EVGA board. Like, I think it was 8 gigs of RAM, which was high at the time.
Yeah.
8 gigs of RAM, on like XP days kind of thing. It was, and I think I had like a 7970-ish card back then. And then I found I was right down the street from XFX. So I started water cooling 8800 GTSs. And every time I broke them, I just kept taking them down the road and didn't even put the cooler back on. That's the thing. Back then, like XFX, I'd walk in with like the cooler and the card and be like, here. And they'd be like, okay. And they'd just give me another card. And I think I went through like 15 of those.
That's funny.
Okay.
But then I started getting back into benchmarking, whether it's, dry ice, LN2, all that, and started working through that. And my current system, actually, I just had to rebuild for like the 3rd time this year because I had X299 and then the monoblock dripped onto it and basically killed it. So then I swapped, the monoblock, the seal failed. Okay. So then from there, I went ahead and swapped to a 9900K Maximus Extreme. And I'm not sure if the CPU or motherboard died, but I'm pretty sure actually the CPU has a problem because it kept dropping PCIe lanes. It would drop from like 16x to 4x on the main slot out of nowhere. I thought the cooler was too tight. I tried everything, swapped it into the board, still had weird flaky issues. So now I'm on a 3900 XT with 64 gigs of RAM and a 3090 with all flash storage.
All right.
But that's all flash storage here too. Raise your hand. All flash storage. Yeah.
How much flash are you running?
I have 4 NVMe drives. I don't know how many, not a whole lot of terabytes. I have a NAS that does most of my like heavy storage, but like just for all of like for doing video editing and OS and games, it's all flash. Like you can't do that.
Nice. I have about 12 terabytes of NVMe storage. Then I have a 50 terabyte NAS that's hooked up through 10 gig.
Nice.
So
Ryan he might have more storage than all of us. He does. How much?
I only have like 40 some terabytes on that NAS back there.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's a DIY NAS. It's just it's something I threw together in my MATX board with like a RAID card. So but that's
now, what do you think since you're running an AMD high-end desktop, what do you think of them
mainstream? HEDT would be Threadripper.
Well, wait, the
3900 XT.
I don't review processors or anything.
I have a 2990 WX back there, but I just don't use it for my main rig because that thing is not great for gaming.
Yeah, so that's what I was like trying to figure out because I'm on X299 now, and I love it, but it's like this board is. I mean, I do have USB 3.2 Gen. I think it's Gen 2. I don't even know, but like this is getting old eventually. It's getting time where I need to upgrade. So I'm like, should I go high? Should I stay high end desktop, or is like mainstream good?
Hold
now?
hold that thought for 1 sec.
You good?
There we go. There we go.
You back?
All right.
Yep. I love SteelSeries headsets. I get to swap the battery and it's done.
Oh, that is really cool.
That's pretty sweet.
Does it come with more than one battery?
Yep. Comes with 2, and the dock that it connects to, the Arctis Pro Wireless, it has a little thing in the side I slide the battery into and it charges it.
Shinny said,
Nice.
This is getting old eventually. Bob talking about literally any tech. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this X299 system is getting old, so it's like,
well, what proc is it?
I don't even know. It's a set 79 something or 70.
Probably like 7900X or something like that. Or
yeah, it's
the 10 core or
I don't even know. No, it's higher than the 10 core. I think. I don't know.
Right click on your taskbar, select task manager. There's ways to figure this out, Bob.
I always forget because
me and Ryan are here for tech support for you. It's okay.
I know. This is super embarrassing. Let's see. System. There we go. 7960X.
Okay, yeah. See, I had a 7940X, and that's what got killed when my block leaked. But the thing is, the clock frequencies just aren't high enough on those.
I know, that's the thing, and it's like,
so you lose a lot of GPU performance out of that, basically.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't play a whole lot of games. Like we play once a week here, and that's pretty much all I play. But it's like I do eventually want to upgrade. The only thing I like about this is that I do get the lanes for my PCI Express storage, which you're not going to get as much on the mainstream. So it's like,
well, you can, but you just got to realize you're through the DMI or chipset bottleneck. So, I mean, but then again, the thing is, a lot of people get flustered about that. But the thing is, once again, people don't realize that you're not writing or you're not working with 4 drives at one time.
That's true.
You're working from 1, maybe 2. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's in reality, that's not that much of a bottleneck.
Yeah. And I think about it too. I'm like, okay, I can get a 5950X, brand new X570, and then have all Gen 4 storage, and then I'll be really speeding, so I don't, we'll see down the road, but
I'm eventually going to have a 5000 series proc. Right now I have the 3900 XT, and it's a great gaming processor. It really is. Yeah. Am I losing a few percent over running because I have a 10900K here as well, but am I losing a little bit of percent? Maybe, but at the end of the day, once I get my 5900X, I guess, I can't remember. It's not XT, it's just X. Yeah, once I get that, it's going to be much better. It's just going to be overall. The thing that's keeping me from doing a 5950 though is still some game engines have a heart attack when you have over a certain amount of threads.
Yeah,
they just fall apart, and that sucks.
It's interesting to see now, especially now because we're so in depth with reviews. It's like, we run a certain amount of benchmarks, and like one does better on AMD, one does better on Intel. And especially even like the processors now, like I review the 5000 series processors, and it's like, there are just some games that just like don't like AMD processors, and
that's reality. And there's certain games that actually like AMD better than like the Intel ones. And hey, that's fine. But at the end of the day, we're talking marginal percentages for the most part. They're not like, they're not like necessarily falling off of a cliff. And that's It's not like the old days where like I hate to say old days because like AMD FX was hot garbage. Really was. That was I had a 9590, and that thing wouldn't hit 5 gigahertz on LN2, I'm quite sure. That chip was absolute trash. And I cannot believe they survived doing that. But you know what? I'm glad they did, because look at what they're doing now.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, because this is kind of what needed to happen to shake up and make us have an 18-core HEDT processor that's less than $1,000.
Yeah.
Whereas we had, a 7980 XE. Remember when that thing launched at $2,000+? And it's like, holy shit, like that's really bad.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing more reasonable products. And granted, I understand Intel's not making, or AMD's not making as much profit as they could, but it's better for consumers. And
that's what I always say. People, you have people on, there's AMD fanboys, there's Intel fanboys, there's NVIDIA fanboys, and then there's AMD fanboys. And it's like, who cares if they're competitive? That means that as the consumer, we're going to win.
Yep,
because they're going to want to compete on price on everything. Yeah. And that's just how it is.
Well, they want that market share. So
yeah. What else? Oh, so tell us about Be Quiet. Tell us about, if you can, tell us about some of the new products. We did see the new AIOs launched recently, and then you just launched a new case. What, yesterday?
Yes.
Bring it up here.
I have one torn apart over. I was actually doing some video on it earlier today, doing some like B-roll stuff. Yeah. The new Be Quiet. It is the. I'm
gonna bring it up because we posted the release so you can see it.
Well, I was gonna make sure if you could pull it up because you could see, but it's the Silent Base 802.
Yeah. So
this is basically, it's for all intents and purposes, it's a upgraded version of the original 801. Okay. So it has swappable panels so that you can have either the solid panels like the 801 had, or you could have mesh panels that allow for higher airflow. Because one thing is, at least we have really quiet fans. So we don't have to worry when we do mesh, it's not going to create as much noise. But if you want optimum silence, we wanted the quiet panels on it as an option.
So it comes with both, or is there different SKUs?
Oh no, it comes with both.
Okay, nice.
So it comes in a box separately, the airflow panels. So you swap those out. And basically, if you run a ton of fans, it might make slightly more noise. But at the end of the day, if you've used Be Quiet fans, you know they're pretty damn quiet. So it's not a whole lot you got to worry about. Yeah. And that's why I think we were safe to be able to take that and go like, okay, you know what? We want to make this a more airflow capable case, which is why we did this, so that you have the option of, if you want that ultra silence and you're not trying to put through like a crazy high-end system that's going to put out a lot of heat, then you're going to be okay. Then you're going to be okay. But if you have the high-end parts and you want to liquid cool, now this thing's even more ready than it was before. And it gives you the options. I mean, you have all of that. You have swappable motherboard tray, so you could actually invert it if you want to, depending on how you want.
That was the coolest thing about the one of the first Be Quiet cases. I forget which one it was. I actually reviewed it. Was that you could, you could flip it. And I was like, why doesn't anybody else do this? Because it makes it, you see, like, it just makes it different. And it's just really, I just thought it was really cool. And you don't see that anymore.
Well, my friend Chad, he actually works at TweakTown doing like the cooler reviews, RAM reviews, stuff like that, and peripheral reviews. He has the Cosmos, the newer Cosmos, and he is. And I think it's cool. I think it's actually a neat look to have it inverted like that. The only problem you have is one thing like he experienced, like some graphics cards, they're made with that standard, way. So when you're trying to pull that air through, if you have it upside down, we're finding that it definitely gets a slight bit toastier than it would on a standard layout system. And that's one thing. If they don't take that into account, that can easily be a problem.
Yeah. And how much, what was the price? I think $159.90. Yeah. I mean, I always think that cases like the median price is 100, but I think there's so much value between 100 and 200 that people don't like, especially when it comes to internal layout. Yes. So many companies don't spend time on internal layout as far as ease of build, modularity, cable management, all of that stuff.
I was hoping you'd say modularity, because that's one of the big ones I've always pushed for. Like when I was at Thermaltake, one of the biggest things I pushed for was modularity. And it's one of the things I'm glad when I walked into Be Quiet, like I already see like a lot of their products are extremely modular, even the most entry-level stuff. Like when you look at it, one of our most popular, one really good case is actually one of the more simpler ones, but it works really well.
Yeah.
It is PureBase 500 DX. The one that has two little RGB strips going straight up the front.
Yeah.
It's one of the first cases that has like RGB on the exterior of the case from Be Quiet. Yeah. And it's just two little strips. So it's like, I call it like RGB tastefully done. It's like, it's like minimalist RGB that can create an aesthetic, but you can also turn the damn thing off and it looks you wouldn't even know it was there.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about RGB. If it's so like ostentatious that like you're looking at it and you're just like, holy crap, like that thing just, it just craps unicorns right in your face. Like that's not fun.
And I mean, it is nice to see companies like, okay, they'll put out a full art, like they'll go all in on RGB, but then they'll also have an option that people don't like care at all about RGB. They'll have that other option, or they'll have they'll have more than one option, which I think is really nice. But I also, like I said, internal layout is something that many companies do not do right. And again, from the cases that I reviewed from Be Quiet in the past, they've thought it out, and that's important for so many reasons beyond just installation, as Ryan said, cable management, temperatures, obviously, and just like I said, like being able to have different layouts, like going from a layout. I remember the one Be Quiet case I reviewed, like gave you all those hard drives, but if you didn't want to use them, you could take them out, and you didn't have to look at all these empty cages. You could take them all out, and it looked, you could change.
You put they had like covers over it, so basically you didn't even know it was there. That's one of the cool things, but that's also why we don't have 300 cases on the market. You notice we only have a few cases. We only release a few cases a year because falls all the way back to the story I told you about how cases are made. We do spend a significant amount of time, and I've already seen things get scrapped and literally back to start to make the right decision rather than pushing forward to something that just was a cool concept, but not necessarily the right idea.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see that level of detail and that level of care for a product, because it's not something I'm necessarily used to. I'm used to wanting to have that kind of care, but having to fight with whether it be a PM, engineer, what have you, to try to get as much as I can out of it. Instead, it's like they have legit discussions where it's like, okay, does this make sense? How's all this? And they go through like conceptual stages. And then they start looking at like, if you're using it this way, how is it going to make a difference? If you're using it this way, is someone going to have a bad experience? And they try, and obviously you can't make everyone happy, but at the end of the day, you try to make as many as possible. And that's where I feel like you got to find that balance, but you also can't make, one case every 3 years either. So at some point you have to kind of decide, it's time to ship it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think, and that's how I would rather, see things, is a few well thought out products, as opposed to just like, again, going back to the throw stuff up at the wall and see what sticks approach. Right.
And there's like to hear that. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that approach. It's just, it means that you can create one of the biggest problems, which is confusion in the market. Like, which case do I want of yours? You have 30 of them. Which one's going to actually fit me? Well, actually, these 14 will fit what you need. Well, which one's best for it? Well, pick one. They all do the same thing, but they have a different exterior panel. Like that's the thing. I mean, you see so much rehashing of the same case coming out with just different exterior panels. It's like, new launch at CES, we did this, and it's like, oh, cool. Once you take those two plastic panels off, it's the exact same case we reviewed 3 years ago.
Didn't we just see this last year?
Yeah.
Wasn't this a new case last year and last year and last year? Oh, I remember when you first made it.
Yeah. And then go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and don't get me wrong, that's great that they have that kind of life cycle, because like I told you, there's tooling costs. The longer they can make that last, the more they're paying off that investment and making more money on top. So it does make fiscal sense to do that kind of thing. You're gonna make a lot more money at the top end, but also I feel like it kind of cheapens your brand a bit, because then you end up with some less desirable products, and those people that have that, they have a negative experience. And we all know, if you have a negative experience with someone, I mean, we've talked, Bob, I'm sure you've had negative experiences in your life where you would never visit a place, or you'd write a bad review about something. And the thing is, if someone ever asks like, hey, what case would you get? You might not recommend that brand because you've reviewed so many of their cases, and they made some really good ones, but they also made some really crap ones. So you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't want to recommend them, because if they go to that brand and they have a bad time, they're not going to trust my opinion anymore.
Yeah. And I think that happens. It's a lot more now because we have social media. I think that's been a big change too, is that, you have all of these different avenues to publicly complain about certain products. And
that's also why it's forcing us and everyone to make better products, because we now know. I mean, I hate to say, like, it wasn't like you were necessarily getting screwed before, but now they know that information travels so quickly that if you make a complete shit box, it's going to be on Reddit in minutes.
Yeah,
people are going to call that
multiple companies. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and people are going to call it out. It's gonna be a dumpster fire, and you know what? That's just what it is. That's reality.
Yeah. And then I don't know, as far as the new Pure Loop stuff, was that before you came on board?
No, it launched while I was there. It was designed and done obviously before I joined, because that kind of stuff still takes time.
Yeah.
But they are pretty badass coolers from what I've seen. I haven't had a ton of time with them, but from what I've seen and from what I've obviously the feedback that because I would rather not sit here and champion my product. That is my job, but I'd rather not sit here and go like, yes, it's the best thing ever. But the thing is, it's an AIO. So you have to temper your expectations accordingly.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's always AIO. That's the thing. It's quiet.
Yeah. It's always interesting to see companies go into a new market, right? Like again, this is their first liquid CPU cooler. It's not?
Nope.
Be Quiet had another one before this?
Google Silent Loop. It wasn't able to be sold in USA thanks to AVADirect.
Yeah,
because those guys need to lose that whole patent crap, because literally it stifles a lot of innovation. It forces people to either partner with them or basically starve. Gotcha. So that's a tough one, because if you have a pump in the head unit, pretty much you fall within, because how broad their patent is. Yep. It's a tough one, and I've worked with AVADirect when I was at Thermaltake. They are not shy about that fact. They absolutely love.
I remember the whole Cooler Master thing.
Yep.
And the whole
and SwiftTech as well.
Yeah, and wasn't the Cooler Master thing part of the AMD AIO card they couldn't sell to?
Yeah, the Fury X water cooled version.
Yeah, so like that was
those also. I'm kind of glad those got pulled, because I don't know I don't know if you knew about it, but like a lot of the pumps started dying. So
yeah.
So take it for what it is.
In any case, it is interesting to see companies come, get into a new market, and to see how their products do, because a lot of times, a lot of these companies, they actually do take their time when they go into a new market, and they make really, really good products. We've seen it kind of across the board. At least a handful of companies have done it really well, and then there's companies that do it really, really bad. But for the most part, I think it's pretty cool. So we'll have to check out some of these new coolers.
That's the thing, is these coolers. I'm going to be honest with you and say, they're probably not going to blow every other cooler out of the water, but they're going to do a damn good job. And the best part is they're going to be quiet as hell doing it. And that's kind of the goal with them. They're not going to, they're not going to blow your drums out. They're going to be very quiet, because there are AIOs out there that are damn turbines.
Yeah, I mean, they're loud as hell. Wine going. Oh, it's horrible.
Well, that's the thing. And with the inline pump, with ours, you have the it's connected to low permeation rubber tubing, so therefore you get that vibration pretty much subsides or gets eaten up or swallowed up by the tubing. You have even less possibility of noise, because that vibration, as I'm sure you've heard of some pumps, can be annoying as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like having a quiet solution, like that's one thing. On my water cooled rig, I actually changed the other day. I changed 2 of the fans. I'm not going to name names, but I had another brand fans in it, and anytime, because let's face it, AMD chips, they idle like 40, 50 degrees most of the time, even liquid cooled. And the motherboard, of course, the UEFI, as soon as it jumps up for single core, with the voltage it uses, all of a sudden, everything goes crazy.
Yeah.
And I had fans just going ape shit, and I'm like, nope, not doing that. So I swapped a few fans in, and it's become a lot better. I've realized the value of not having balls to the walls fans that just drive you insane.
Yeah. It's like with my system here. If you have loud fans, it's just like any system, regardless of what it is,
unless it's a server.
Servers are supposed to be loud. I did have one question that we didn't have in the notes. I don't know if you can answer it or not. But obviously this started happening when you were at Thermaltake, and as far as software goes, how do you work that? Like, we've seen all this RGB software, but then, when you were at Thermaltake, it was like the control software for keyboards, mice. Does the product get made first? And I mean, obviously the product gets made first, but I mean, do they work together? Because we've seen over the years, we've seen some really bad control software.
I can tell you exactly how that happens.
Yeah. I would love to know that whole process, or how that works.
A lot of times they sub it out to another company.
Yeah.
In a very, very large company, or in a very, very large country.
Yeah.
That has a lot of people. and they find the people that will write it for the cheapest way possible. And that's that's just, they're trying to save a buck. They're trying to make it reasonable. But what happens is you end up with this generic control scheme that doesn't always necessarily work. And that's why you end up with weird bugs where it bricks during a firmware flash or something stupid that just happens. It even happened like with the early Thermaltake software. I haven't used any of their software as of recent, but from what I heard, it got better. But we had some serious issues with it, and it all came down to the fact that it was an outside team that did the work on it. The product was obviously being created. We knew what MCUs to use and things like that, like the microcontrollers. Yeah. We knew what little ARM processors to use to control the RGB. But the problem you have is that when that software is not very good, it makes the whole product bad.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You could have an amazing keyboard, amazing mouse, amazing headset, because I know they have RGB headsets now. But you could have an amazing any product, doesn't matter, because if it's garbage to work with the software, then you lose the whole idea.
Yeah, and I think that was the big thing. We saw it so many times where it was like, I reviewed a keyboard or a mouse, and then a year later, the software was completely different. It was like two different teams worked on it. It was completely just, night and day, which was just a little weird. I think now most of these companies, I assume most of them have a team. That's what they do at the company now. Like the Corsair with IQ, with Razer software, with what's the Steel Series. Steel Series makes really good software.
Yes.
As well. So it's
you could tell who does it in house and who doesn't. For sure.
Yeah. But I think that's Brian. If you had any other questions.
No, I think we covered.
I do want to mention a couple questions that are actually in the YouTube chat, because one of them is Kosher Tech asks, why don't case manufacturers offer more colors besides black and white?
I didn't see that.
It's on YouTube.
It was on YouTube chat.
And
I'm still new to these computers, so
newfangled computer things. Hold on, he's got to put on his reading glasses.
Maybe it didn't pop up because I'm looking at it in.
It's in. StreamYard.
I see it. Okay.
I'm gonna emulate Bob. Hold on, got to put on the specs.
Yeah, and you gotta.
Let's take a look here. Hold on, I gotta adjust it to the tip of my nose so I can read it.
Yeah.
No, man. When it comes to case colors, that's more a market decision, because while I've worked on cases that have come out with red, blue, blah, 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 black and white outsell them like well over 100 to 1. It's just insane how high the volume is. And the fact is, you have what's called an MOQ, minimum order quantity, when you're basically building with, because most case manufacturers, whether you want to hear it or not, don't build their own cases. They have manufacturers that build the products after they design them. And if you have a minimum order quantity and you have to order a container, let's say a few hundred cases, and your sell-through of like a blue case, which, true story, I'm not going to say exactly the case, but let's say a blue case that sells 3 per month, you can do the math and figure out that product life cycle is going to be very ugly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things is that. And then you have Old Man also said SwiftTech put their pump on the radiator to get around the patent. Yes, they did, on the version that wound up surviving. They had one that they worked with. Actually, I think they were working with Cooler Master on theirs. That one that was Cooler Master was worked on with SwiftTech, if I remember correctly, because I'm good friends with Gabe over at SwiftTech. And I remember when him and I were sitting in his office talking about it once, because I would go down there and visit him on random occasions, because we actually at Thermaltake we actually licensed one of their Apogee XL, I think, blocks for the Thermaltake line. We actually licensed it, and he built it for us and everything. He did a lot of OEM work. He does a lot of work for a lot of people. And he basically got his balls busted a little bit about the whole Azatec crap. And so that kind of turned him off to the whole AIO scene. It just wasn't worth it, because at that point, he's hell with it. Because he created that one with the MCP pump at the end, but it just wasn't the same. It was a lot more unwieldy to install. It just became a big pain in the ass. And so you'll notice that like SwiftTech, they more push their custom stuff when they do. And they have a few AIOs here and there, but they've refined them a lot. Like they have the ones with little cylinders on the side, like the Drive X3 and all that. But it's not a viable or a thriving market for them when you have so many more affordable, like Azatec based AIOs. But unfortunately, people don't understand how those are made. So they don't understand that you're getting a little tiny thin aluminum radiator. There's a lot to AIOs that it's not the same as full water cooling. But then again, when you're talking like my full custom loop gets a few degrees cooler than I mean, all the people that are like, yeah, custom water cooling is the best. You get like 30 degrees cooler. You're full of it.
Nope.
You're full of it. It's sorry. Yeah. It's sorry, not sorry. I custom water cool because it looks cool. I don't do it because of the great cooling performance. Yes, it takes longer to saturate the loop, but speaking of that, I got a FE 3090. Getting a block for that thing, Jesus. Everyone's like, "Hey, it's the reference design." Then I realized reference design FE is not, because of that like V-shaped cutout. So I'm trying to get a water block for this thing not because it needs it. The cooler's fantastic, but the air cooler's fantastic, but it's also like this damn big. Oh wait, in the camera, it's like that damn big. The thing's ginormous, dude.
Yeah, it's what's so crazy is I have a 3070 here, and I was just actually surprised at how small this card is, but I guess it makes sense.
Did you get a FE 3080?
No, I didn't. This is the only FE I have, and this is Damon's card. He's letting me borrow it. But no, so I have a Zotac 3090 and an MSI 3080. And the 3080 is actually bigger than this 3090, surprisingly. But yeah, I always wanted to like you see pictures online of the 3090 FE, and it's like, damn, that thing is huge.
It is.
Oh, it is, dude.
It's enormous.
Yeah. I took a picture. I think I showed a picture with my 2080 Ti FE next to my 3090. Dude, this thing, it looks like the 3090 could just eat it. It's like the lunch. It's like, oh, that's fantastic. Because I also have a Titan RTX, and I'm like, oh, this is so cute. This is wonderful. Like it legit, dude. You could fit it if you were able to open that thing up, like gut it. You could drop like a 2080 Ti or a Titan RTX inside of it and close it up, and you would never know it was there.
That's funny.
I saw people posting like these FE cards holding up like an MITX motherboard. They're like, hold it up.
Yeah. Asus did that. It's like there was that joke from Captain Phillips where literally it has the MAT or ITX motherboard with basically I call it plugged into the 3090 because 3090 is so damn. And it's just like, look at me, I'm the motherboard now. It's like no shit, like that thing's freaking massive.
Yeah.
Also, Derek Moore, one more thing. Derek Moore brought up something, which is the new TEC coolers.
Yeah, I saw that.
I do think you need to understand they don't just pull at least another 100 watts. They can pull well in excess of 150 or 250 watts. Those kind of tech coolers, if you're really pushing them under normal usage, you're going to see probably under a decent load, you'll see about 85 to 105 watts. But if you're really pushing that thing, you could see well in excess of 150 watts. And that's something to consider, not to mention if you live in a very humid area, it should stay warm enough. I saw Roman actually tested it. But if you happen to, like, for instance, let's say your VCCSA and VCCIO VRMs are up on the left side and top instead of under, which a lot of them have them under the socket, so it keeps the PCB warm all the way around. If you don't have that, I would be concerned about the PCB temperature right below. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if you don't have the VCCSA or VCCIO rails below it, that would probably screw you a little bit. I could be wrong, but last time I used a tech, it was a long time ago, and the worst thing about techs is when they fail badly because they reverse. So then next thing you know, the cold side becomes hot. Yeah. And that becomes instant cook.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know how I know that. Because I stacked TECs to see what would happen if I did Peltier through multiple.
Yeah.
It was awesome while it lasted.
Man, I bought a mini fridge one time that tried to use that technology. Man, it just was horrible. I was not happy.
It keeps it cold.
No, yeah, I think I had one of those a lot. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a mini fridge on my desk with
that's what I said.
Some Red Bull in it or whatever.
And some energy drink. No, I was like, when's this thing gonna get cold? That's it.
No, that's as cold as it gets.
Yeah.
And the worst part is it works off of ambient too.
Yeah. It was horrible.
Yeah. Derek flies while it lasted. Yeah, pretty much. It was fantastic. When you stack TECs, it sounds like a really stupid idea, but if you have a big water loop on it, it's actually really cool. And you can get like sub-ambient loaded temperatures. That was back in 775 days, but you get sub-ambient loaded temperatures. But when it fails, you suddenly get like straight. You get instant shut off of the system if you're lucky. It failed. It failed, and basically when it failed, it was like dominoes. It was bloop, all of it.
Yeah.
It literally just nuked all of them like within seconds.
That's funny.
That just reminds me of remember when Modern Warfare first came out on PC? Like we're talking, God, this is going to date me a lot. When I tried, everyone was talking crap about benchmarking LN2, and so I played a match of that while basically on dry ice at like 6 gigahertz. It's like, look, you can do it. Not saying it's the right choice, but if you're stupid, you can do it.
That happens. You have to do it to show that you can do it.
Yeah,
that's do it to show you can do
Bob,
it.
If he can do that, you can do some custom liquid cooling.
We'll see.
Bob, Bob, I'll send you some parts. I probably have some spare parts.
Whenever the thing is, the whole thing it comes down to time, and time's just not my time's my enemy.
Thermaltake was actually my first custom kit. I had one of the I reviewed one of the big waters.
Oh dear Lord! Like long little green tube one.
And I think it had like an external.
I always thought that was so cool, though. The green tubing, I was like, that's so cool.
It was amazing because I had like blue, cold cathode lights in the case. It was like a Thermaltake shark case, I think is what it was.
Yeah, we're all showing our age now when we're talking about cold cathode lighting. It's like
people are like,
what's that?
People are like, how many LEDs are in a cold cathode? None.
None.
I remember the move from cold cathode to LED. And it was like night and day.
Yeah.
But I remember when I got my first cold cathode, it might have even been from Antec. I don't even remember how, but I was like, this is so cool. I can light up the inside of my computer now. Those were the days. But is there anything else? Ryan, you have any more questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Real quickly, we will talk about reviews that we have coming up next week. We're taking a look at a gaming headset from Creative. It's their
Isn't
I can't word either.
Isn't everything gaming nowadays? I mean,
yeah. But this is their gaming headset that has their Super X5 technology, which is really cool. Depending, I wouldn't say so much for gaming, but I think it's better for watching media and things like that. But we'll be taking a look at that, and then I'll be taking a look at the Samsung the 870 QVO, which is their QLC SSD. So I'll have that for you guys next week.
Are you looking at 8 terabyte version?
No, I have a 1 terabyte.
1 terabyte. I knew it. 1 terabyte. I already could have called it. Dude, honestly, QLC is not bad as long as you're not writing to the damn thing all the time. Because the low endurance is probably a killer, but for game drives, they're awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think you see these numbers in the, you see these reviews, and it's like when you do have, as soon as like that write cache goes and your performance goes down, but it's like, who's really writing to the drive like that? And if you are doing heavy writes, which drive you're going to be getting. Like,
well, that's the thing. If you're doing that kind of heavy write and you have a QLC, which is a budget drive technically, you're probably going to be able to make that concession because that's not like that permanently goes that way. It's just during that write period. And if you're exceeding that cache, if you're doing it with large blocks, like you're copying huge movie files or what have you, whatever your digital media happens to be. But if you're writing like games, you're writing small bits as you're downloading it, like from Steam.
Yeah.
So I don't see where it's really going to be a major concern. I think that would probably be a non-issue. But I could definitely see where, it could be that could definitely fall apart for someone who does like for instance, let's say you edit videos, right?
Yeah.
If you're using that like as a scratch drive or like as your ingest drive, that's going to be a disaster because you're going to destroy that drive. Yeah. Especially if you use it scratch for Premiere.
Yeah, Premiere.
Because Premiere is a nightmare with scratch drives.
Yeah. I had to go through this. Somebody made this whole long post on how you should actually set it up. And when I rebuilt this, I finally did that, and it's like it makes it so much better. But it's like you would think that Adobe would make it just a little bit easier to set all your scratch, like to set everything up.
But you think they would auto optimize it? Make it. I mean, there were like one of the premier productivity softwares. I've never understood how DaVinci Resolve, which you can use free, can use hardware better than Adobe, who's been around since freaking MS 3.1 damn near.
And like when I reviewed the 3090, they give us a resolve thing that actually uses the 24 gigabytes of VRAM on this card. Like I can select this card, the CUDA, for when I encode, but it doesn't really use the card like it should be used. But if I use Resolve, I can fully take advantage of the card. That's kind of disappointing as a creator. You get this new tech and you want to fully maximize it to save you time, which equals money, and you can't actually do that. So
that sucks.
Yeah.
That's what sucks about optimization is Adobe kind of has this huge lock on people, but once they realize it's a steep learning curve. But then again, so was Premiere Pro. Once you learn like something like DaVinci Resolve, it's so much better for video editing, dude.
Yeah, I know a couple people that have kind of made the switch over.
I did a while back, and it's because I shoot in 4K 60 at 150 megabits. So, but that's
yeah. Kosher did have a question about. I assume he's talking about the new Be Quiet case. He asked if it comes with a glass side panel.
You're talking about the 802? If you're talking about the 802, there's actually two versions. There's the 802 and the 802 window, and they come in black or white. So technically there's 4 of them. One's a window, one's a solid panel. If you prefer like just a solid panel with like sound deadening, you have those options.
Cool.
And being that you can invert it, the panels can be swapped. The other thing was I noticed Old Man asked, do case reviewers change the design of cases? No, but they do influence it. Absolutely. Yeah. Because, I should say they influence it to the companies that care about it. Because if you care about it, you're going to look at the people's feedback and you're going to see that, if it's testing badly because you have glass everywhere and it's choking the fans, well, then you need to fix your stupid design.
And I think that we're seeing it with the 802 and some other case companies, a couple, that you get an option now, whether it's either a different SKU, but a lot of times it's the same SKU and they give you the glass panels and the mesh panels all together.
They can.
And that's just, and that's, we see that a lot now. So it's like, if you want to go high airflow, you can. If not, you can go, if you want to go for looks, you have the glass panels as well. So,
that's actually a good point. But the thing I don't like about that or don't care too much for is you create a lot more waste that way.
Yeah.
I do like offering.
Pass that cost on to the consumer as well.
Well, that's the thing. You're including extra parts, and those parts are not cheap. Like tempered glass is not cheap, especially good tempered glass. That's why you have cases that have, like, if you ever see like 3 mil or really thin tempered glass, that's what's called chemically tempered. It's not actually true tempered glass, which is why you'll see those ones tend to break into more shards versus the small cubes. Because tempered glass is under stress, and that's why when they break, it's called popping. They blow up because they're under internal stress. Well, yeah, I had one blow up. I actually took a video of it. I had a fractal case, and I was reviewing it, and I posted the video. I'm like, straight up, I'm like, you guys need to be. I'm like, this is like a PSA for everyone. Like, this is what happens with tempered glass. The case panel was sitting straight up on the table, just sitting there.
Yeah.
And I was shooting photos of something else, and all of a sudden I hear, boom. Then I hear boom. Then I hear, and it just sat there and crackled for probably a good 2 minutes.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I'm just sitting there going like, holy crap.
Yeah,
and, go ahead.
Oh no, I forget the company, but this was like, it's like when tempered glass first started becoming pretty popular, and like UPS like leaves like the case out of my front door. I pick up the case and you can hear it. Like you can hear it, and I'm like, this is not good. I open it up, and it's just the whole box is just full of glass pieces, and I'm like. And I think I took a picture of it. I might have said it to Ryan. I was like, get tempered glass. They said it would be fun. They said.
See, that's the thing. And I want to clear up. I'm not talking trash on Fractal because I've had plenty of case panels explode. That just was the immediate one I was talking about because those dudes make some really good cases. And at the end of the day, it was just, I'm guessing because of the way I saw the crack, I'm guessing like the edge of it had an imperfection. And it just happened to fail.
That happens on a lot of pre-production stuff. If you're getting into review, we've had that. But yeah, so we're getting to the end here, but we do try to talk about tech or tech-related things. Shannon and I both got a new piece of tech this week. We both got. Well, you had to get a phone for work, but this is my. I use it for work too. But I mean, my personal. I got an iPhone 12 Pro.
It's got a fidget spinner there up in the corner. Is that what those things are? It's like
yeah, that's what it looks like. Kind of, yeah. that would be the 3 cameras.
There you go.
Yep, I got my fidget spinner too.
Yeah, so
I got the graph. I keep forgetting which direction's which.
Yeah,
this is my first ever iPhone, by the way, and I gotta admit, I used to be one of those guys that trashed on Apple. It's actually not a bad experience. I mean, it works. I've had Android my whole life, or since I shouldn't say my whole life. Jesus Christ. I grew up when phones were still connected to walls. So, and you used to put quarters in them and use them. Good luck finding those nowadays.
Ooh, yeah. Good luck finding a payphone.
But no, I mean, I've always despised iPhone because it's a closed, like walled garden ecosystem. But I used it, and you know what? The one thing about this thing, I'm pretty sure I could kill a man if I threw this phone at them.
Oh yeah,
like this thing is chunky, dude. This thing is heavy as hell.
Yeah, it feels nice. It feels really good in the hand.
And mind you, I feel like it's heavier than my S10 Plus. And there's your size comparison. Like, hold on, let me put it bottom to bottom so you can see. Like, it's legit way smaller than my S10 Plus.
It has like an industrial feel.
Oh yeah, it feels very polished. Like, even this is one of the things I told my friend who is a total Apple guy. I'm like, dude, straight up, I'm surprised. Like, unboxing this thing, it felt like an experience. That's one thing they do. Like, as a marketing guy, I appreciate that. They do a great fit and finish on everything. So the only thing I'm kind of pissed off about is that whole, we're going green, so we're not going to give you a charger. Go to hell, Apple.
Yeah. Well, it's first started with the headphones. You don't get headphones. And now you get the cable, but you don't get the actual thing that plugs into the wall.
You don't get the wall wart part. Yeah, so you gotta source your own. And the funny part is they give you a cable. And the funny part was when they tried to justify it, they're like, we have like 2 billion Apple chargers out there. And they're like, so we just give you a cable. The problem is, one thing they forget to mention, all those previous chargers had a Type A port.
Yeah, it's Type
C. The cable they send you is a Type C port.
Yep.
So it's like, cool. GG, guys. Good job.
Yeah. Now, for me, I went from an iPhone 10 to this 12 Pro. Mm-hmm. I haven't had a whole lot of time to play with this because I'm not really on my phone all that much, but it is much faster, which is obviously good. The camera is far better. I really enjoy the camera. It's pretty awesome. So,
so far the camera is actually really nice.
Yeah, I really, really like the camera. Beyond that, I also started watching this show on Netflix called.
Yeah, I saw your link there. What was that?
Yeah, it's called Queen's Gambit.
I've heard about that. I have not watched it yet, but it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to bring it up.
It's another show I won't be able to watch.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't have Netflix.
Get Plex, dude. Oh wait, I shouldn't say that on a live stream. Never mind. Forget.
It's whenever it comes up, it has all this music, so I'm not going to play it. But it's basically, I don't know if it's a true story. I didn't look it up. I always hate looking it up. Yeah, I always hate looking it up because it ruins the story. Because I'll look it up if it's a true story. I assume this is based on a true story about this girl who was like a genius at chess, and I guess it's her story. But it's really, really good so far. I've watched 2 episodes, so we do have the link. I have the link to that in the show notes, but it's on Netflix. So you can just find it. But beyond that, like I said,
or if you have a friend that's creative with content, maybe you can happen to watch it some other way. But I won't mention specific ways, like I already did, like an idiot.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Shannon? If you had any,
I don't know. I mean, why does Ryan and Bob suck at Apex Legends? Well, yeah. I shouldn't joke about that because I played like 5 minutes of one match.
Yeah.
So
I did pretty good last. I feel like
you did really good. You did great last week.
Now,
we did all right.
Tonight, I don't know.
That was on your notes, damn it. So don't blame me.
I think that's what's been missing for me.
That was on your notes, so that's not my fault that I brought that up.
No, you're good.
But no, beyond that, we really appreciate you coming on, and we hope that everybody likes this type of content. It's not going to be every week. I don't know. I don't have that many friends.
I don't think Bob could take that kind of abuse if I started coming on more regularly somehow.
Yeah, we definitely want to have you on again for sure. Maybe when we can talk more about some upcoming products, that'd be pretty cool. But we definitely want to do this whole interview thing, like every once in a while, get people on. And just like I said, just like we did with Shannon, just like talk about their story and just, interact with you guys. We appreciate everybody in the live stream asking questions for sure. So definitely let us know if you like this type of content, and we'll definitely get more people on, whether they're in the PC industry. I have a bunch of friends in the esports and gaming and just people who we met throughout the years. I think it'd be a lot of fun to talk to people and just like hang out. And we're almost at 2 hours here. Just hang out for a couple hours and talk about tech, and it'd be, a lot of fun. So we are going to be gaming over on Twitch. Ryan and I will be playing some Apex Legends, and hopefully
I would, but I still have to go eat dinner.
Yeah, well,
man.
we don't want to keep you much longer. So we'll be over there. It's twitch.tv/ThinkComputers. Ryan will get that stream up and get it going so we can play at least a few hours of Apex before I go to bed.
And then they promised, just because we're live, I'm gonna told you this. They promised they're gonna teach me it, and even if they didn't, now they have to. So
yeah,
I'm gonna try it once.
We'll eventually teach you Apex. You can't be much worse than Ryan. So
that's true.
I'll take this challenge. Challenge accepted.
Great.
So if you are looking for us, if you want to either watch or listen, it's just ThinkComputers, all one word, in all of YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcast, everything like that. Oh, there's this new dog.
Yep.
Brand new dog.
That's Mando.
Mando. Is that the name you settled on then?
I think that's what we settled on. I'm not sure. He's trying to eat my finger. What? Yeah. He's a psychopath. He's like, he goes from cute sleeping puppy to Tasmanian devil in like 2 seconds.
That's funny. That's how they all are, though. That's how all little dogs are, for sure. But yeah, guys, we're gonna go ahead and end things here. Thanks everybody for coming out, and thank you, Shannon. And